Morgan, thank you for that. And the mayor says that the ruling is the end of this chapter, emphasizing that he did nothing wrong.
And joining us now with more on this decision is former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland. Thank you so much for joining us. Kind of not surprised that this happened, but it is dropped now with prejudice, and that's what we were waiting to find out, what would happen.
It was expected. The judge was really limited what he could do in terms of dismissing it or not. He brought in Paul Clement, the former Solicitor General, to give his ideas and thoughts. The real issue was with prejudice or without prejudice. One meaning it can be revived, and in this case, the judge said, no, it is done, it is over.
Okay, so what does that mean then moving forward for Adams and his now this campaign trail as he's trying to become mayor again? What does this look like for him?
Well, you know, there's public perception and there's the reality of the case. Obviously, due process is there, or one would argue is not there because Donald Trump stepped in and had this, removal or dismissal of the case. But he can go out and say, I'm not guilty, I have not been convicted of a crime, and he'd be telling the truth. How he got there, that's a different question, whether it's quid pro quo or not.
Yes, you think that damage has already been done?
You know, absolutely. I think if you're looking at this from an evidentiary standpoint, from what was shared with the public, and obviously we weren't in that grand jury, we don't have access to everything, but it didn't look like this was brought the wrong way. And the judge made it clear this was not, maybe pretextual on the part of the government to say that there was some sort of bad actions on the part of the Southern District. But he said no, that was not the case.
Okay, so for the people that say quid pro quo here, what is the evidence that supports that?
Well, you know, you look at Emile Beauvais' statement at the time, which in substance was this indictment was inhibiting the mayor's ability to enforce or follow Trump's immigration policies and plan. That has no place in anywhere in the criminal justice system. You heard from prosecutors in the Southern District who stepped down to say that this was not justice to have this dismissal. So I think that speaks very largely in terms of what this case was about and whether or not this was, if you do for me, Mayor Adams, I'll do for you.
So then we watched what Mayor Adams said. He held a press conference after. What was your takeaway from what he said there?
You know, it was disturbing to say the least. You know, to equate Jesus to Donald Trump stepping in, and it looked like he wanted to hold the Bible, but then holding Kash Patel's deep state book about government gangsters, really, I think, diminishes the rule of law. He is an innocent man until if and when proven guilty, and he was not, and he has a right to say so. But there's also intellectual honesty here. This was not something that due process played out, and it wasn't Jesus that saved him, and it wasn't the Bible, it was Donald Trump.
So we're talking about his attorney also said this case should have never been brought. Your thoughts?
I absolutely disagree. Again, I'd go back to what Emile Beauvais said in terms of why it was being dismissed, and I'd go to what the judge said, and the judge did a really terrific job, and he was handcuffed to say it is going to be dismissed, but let's look at it for what it is, and there's no evidence that there was inaction or, poor or improper action by the Southern District prosecutors. This is not necessarily being dismissed on the merits, but I'm handcuffed.
All right, we got to leave the conversation there. Jeremy Saland, thank you as always.
Thank you.